Welcome, everyone, to podcast number 22. I'm at Vitality right now, and I just slipped into the sauna room so I could record the intro to this podcast. Nick just set me up here. And this podcast, Tom Devito joins me. And over the years, I've mentioned him coming on several times, so maybe some of you may remember that. Tom is a colon hydrotherapist. He's been doing this for over 20 years. And we met about 16 or 17 years ago at Chakra 17, which was the first colon hydrotherapy studio I ever went to and worked at. I worked there with Tom. I worked there with Joyce Rockwood. I worked there with Gil Jacobs. So other familiar names and faces from this podcast. And Tom has a lot of experience, and he tells his story about the illness that brought him into this whole lifestyle and profession. So just a little disclaimer. Because of that, and this applies not just to this podcast, but to all podcasts, we are not giving out any medical advice. So I just want to be very clear on that. Tom, of course, is from Staten Island because all good colonic therapists are from Staten Island. Well, anyway, a lot of good colonic therapists are from Staten Island. So I actually hung out with Tom's brother when I was a teenager, but I did not meet Tom until years later, where we met at Chakra 17. So yeah, I just want to get us going. I want to get us started. We did have some technical difficulties. We're working it out here. The space is big. This is the biggest studio that I've ever created, and we have tall ceilings. So sometimes the audio is not right. Sometimes we have a lot of echo. Sometimes some of the guests don't speak close enough to the microphone and they fade out like that. So, forgive the subtle inconsistencies while we work it out. The content's amazing. I hope you guys like it. Let's jump right in.
I mean, that number, 20,000 colonics?
Yeah, I've done about 20,000.
That's insane.
We're talking about an article that we're going to get into later. It says, colon hydrotherapist who has performed 20,000 irrigations reveals what you need to know about gut health. And it was a interview piece done by the Independent UK. And the reason I wanted to bring this out, we'll bring it out later, it's because I love to watch you get pissed off. And it was basically, they interviewed me, and we did, anyway, I did the interview, and the comment section is just on fire. Yeah, when it comes to colonics, people just get venomously, what's the word, internet educated, authoritative on why colonics will destroy you.
But the ones that are like vitriolic, like that are like, venomous about it, are the ones who've never had a colonic. And as a matter of fact, I used to get into debates with people and you gave me, one day we were talking, and you gave me this line, and I was like, I'll never forget that line as long as I live. And you were having a discussion, I think with a doctor, an MD, and you said, well, how many colonics have you given? And he was like, none. How many have you received? None. Well, then you're not qualified to discuss this
Exactly.
topic.
The reason I don't discuss brain surgery is because I don't know shit fuck about it.
Right.
So why did, even medical doctors, brilliant, you have a tremendous education.
Right.
Why are you telling me what's wrong with something I've been doing for 18 years and everything's been fine with me and everyone I've ever worked on?
It'll be 23 years since I've been getting colonics, right? I'm waiting for the negative effects to kick in.
So I did these really good podcasts, and the first few podcasts I did were really great. Dr. Fred Bishy, Gil Jacobs, and I was kind of like talked to them about that because like it's like a very special process to me how you sort of find this lifestyle because we don't dabble, like it's like our full lifestyle. Like we do this all the time, not just doing colonics, but like getting into saunas and cryo chambers and eating clean and juicing for over 20 years, all of us. So it was interesting when I had them on the podcast. I wanted to know what their thing was about because it was so many years before us. Fred was like, 50 years before? He's 88 this year. Because now, and especially for people getting into it now, like there's so much. The internet has changed the entire world. There's so much. There's all the self-appointed YouTube experts. There's the bloggers. There's just so much exposure to all of this stuff, like this whole fruitarian movement that's going on right now, the 80-10-10 thing. Like there's just all this stuff for people like, and I know for me, like you had to find the right book. So for them, I was fascinated. I'm like, who even told you this was okay? Like that you could just eat like raw fruits and vegetables and do all this cleansing. Like who was even talking about that? So I'm interested to know, and I know a little bit about it, but you found yourself there.
I was 15 when I first started noticing I had neurological problems. I didn't know that they were neurological problems because it felt like deja vu, but only much quicker. And I was a busboy in a hotel restaurant, the Holiday Inn on Richmond Avenue. And I would be setting a table, and there was something that would snap in my head. And that was 15.
What do you mean snap?
There's no way to describe it other than like a little, I don't know. It's like almost as, okay, the best analogy I can come up with is if you were listening to a tape or watching a video and you could just go whoosh and go like fast forward by a half a second or a nanosecond.
So you felt like a jump?
It felt like a jump or a shock or a slip. More than anything, it felt like a slip in the brain, like something the gears didn't catch. And it went like, hard to explain until it became physical, which happened when I was 17. So I think I had my first seizure at 17 years of age. And what I had was a grand mal seizure, grand, big, mal, bad, right? Big, bad seizures started at 17. And the warning would be like an arm would just shoot out. Like I'd be talking to you and it would be like that, or my leg would kick. But it would be like a stutter in my brain. That's probably a better way to describe it. So with the stutter in the brain and now the physical expression of that, I realized I had a more serious issue, but I was keeping it to myself because I was concerned, I was afraid.
How long did they last and how far between?
Well, initially it would be a thing where it would happen and then nothing else would follow. And then as the illness was progressing in me, it became like pregnant, what do you call them, when they would get the contractions. So it would be like boom, and then another hour later, boom. And then a half an hour later, boom. And then 20 minutes later, boom. 15, 10, and then eventually they would just be minutes apart until a full-blown grand mal seizure would happen. And for those of you who don't know what that is, a grand mal seizure is complete unconsciousness, on the floor or wherever you are, and the whole body convulses because the brain is seizing. And I forgot, I used to know this a lot better, but it's like neurotransmitters are sending signals, electronic impulses, but the receptor site and it are out of sync. Okay. So the electric charge in the brain becomes like a zap, like a bug zapper. And anyway, so once the grand mal seizure would hit, I would be unconscious until that would stop. And once that stopped, I would be in this like post-seizure daze, not know who I was or the people around me, things like that. On my 18th birthday, I had a grand mal seizure the day after my 18th birthday at my friend's house. Got rushed to the hospital, and then from there, started seeing a neurologist, and I was put on meds, and I was told I would have to be on these meds for life. Phenobarbital and Dilantin. I took 90 milligrams of phenobarbital a day. That was 3 pills a day, and 300 milligrams of Dilantin a day. And that was like a really super potent whatever drug, anti-seizure drug, phenobarbital being a downer. And I was told I'd have to take those meds for life. And that was 1980 or 81, somewhere around there. And I took those drugs over the years and still went out and drank and did stupid shit, thought I had a safety net, ate the worst crap in the world, go out all night, drink, go to a diner, have a double cheeseburger deluxe with fries covered in cheese and the gravy and the whole bit, or, a 4-egg multiple cheese omelet at like 5 a.m. in the morning. Wake up at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or 2 in the afternoon, ravenously hungry.
And eat again,
somehow,
which is fat. I used to do that too all the time. Fall asleep with food on me and then wake up and be like, I got to eat something.
Got to eat something. Crazy. So I don't know if that was actually being digested or acid pangs, but it's a crazy thing. So I'm on the drugs, the meds, and every time I would try to get off the meds, because I started to have like a consciousness about, I don't want to be taking, pills every single day for the rest of my life and then eventually reproduce. And,
So you were conscious of the fact that it was going to somehow
it was
affect
impede,
your...
Yeah, or I was going to have a damaged baby or something.
Right.
You know.
yeah.
So I was becoming aware of health, and every time I would try to get off the meds, the symptoms would return. So I would like get off the meds gradually or whatever. I forget how the doctor would guide me, and then I'd be off of them, and then within months, within weeks sometimes, but within months, the symptoms would come back, or I'd get a seizure or something of that nature. So I'd go back on the meds. 11 years go by. I'm working at McGraw-Hill, the book publishing company, but they also made magazines. So I worked for one of their magazines. They had a bookstore. I had a discount. I go in and I get this MD nutrition book, and I'm like, I'm on my way to health. Here I go. And I start reading the book, and you know, it's written by doctors, and the doctors are like, we don't call it junk food, we call it fun food. You know, don't worry about it. Have the food you like. We have such amazing techniques in surgery and such groundbreaking drugs. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? So that book goes in the garbage. I'm working at a different magazine at the time, and I'm complaining about having gotten that book and being misled. So this woman I worked with, great woman, Kim, says to me, I have a book I think you should read. I'm like, what's it called? She's like, Fit for Life. I'm like, I'm not interested in exercise. She goes, no, it's like internal fitness. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll check it out. And that was the introduction to food combining, the importance of high water containing foods. Do you remember that?
Yes, Harvey and Marilyn Diamond.
Correct.
And they're the ones that got Tony Robbins into all that.
Yeah, well, he wrote the foreword of the book.
Oh, he had written it for it, yeah.
And, you know, so it was a really, really interesting thing, because high water content foods, juicing, the importance of juicing, and they get into briefly enemas and colonics and things of that nature. And I'm like, wow, this is fascinating stuff. So I immediately do the food combining, immediately start, you know, experimenting with juicing and all that. And with the food combining, I felt such a dramatic difference immediately. Like, it was immediate. I was like, where's all that discomfort that every single meal I ever ate was like, eat the meal, deal with the pain, the discomfort, cramping. You know, there was a point I remember as a kid, being 8, 9 years old, 6 years old, no, maybe older, 8, 9 years old, riding my bicycle and stopping because right above the pelvic bone, I would get this burning hot pain that would just stop. I would stop and just wait for it to pass. Like, that was what was going on in my gut at 8 or 9. So it's no wonder that by 18 I was medicated for an illness, you know. So all that time, by the way, as I'm medicating for the seizures, I'm suffering with like acute allergies that I had from a very, very young age. So I had all the seasonal airborne shit going on. So at the point that I changed the food combining thing, I really step up the juicing, and I'm noticing, wow, I feel, you know, now this is 91, somewhere around there, and I'm thinking, you know, most people would say I haven't felt this good since I was 18, but I never felt that good because I was sick at 18.
Right? See, that's interesting. When I only felt better after 18. I felt horrible at 18. If you see pictures of me, and I put them on the podcast sometimes, so if anyone ever seen those pictures, like, I was supposed to be at my prime. I was just at my worst, destroyed. But go on.
The funny thing is that I got into exercise a bunch when I was younger, and I look at pictures of me and I thought, I used to always feel I was overweight, I was chubby, whatever. I look back at pictures of me at like 18, 19, 20, 21, and I was like built like a fucking gladiator. I was like in such what appeared to be good shape. No one like would have picked me out of a lineup and said, this guy is on medicine for a neurological disorder. Like,
but you felt chubby, you said?
I always felt like I was thick.
Because you were feeling internal cellular pressure, mucus congestion.
Oh, yeah.
There's a picture. I'll put it up if anyone's watching this on YouTube. There's a picture of me. I have to show it to you. I'm going to pull it up while you tell the story.
The gut picture, the one with the belly?
No, not the one with the belly. There's a picture of me I did side by side because I go to an astrologer. He's incredible. His name is John. His website is astrojohn.com. He's
Remind me to make fun of you for
no,
astrology.
It's in. Listen, I am not. All right, let's. All right, pause.
Mercury's in retrograde.
Pause. Okay. No, when you read daily horoscopes by newspapers, that's just whatever. But I mean, in India, they don't make a business decision without them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people that don't pay attention to astrology in India, but a large population do, and I've spent time in India, and they don't make business decisions without it. They take it very seriously. Large companies have astrologers that help them determine their moves and their relationships with their partners. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I wasn't a believer. I wasn't like, oh, I'm like this new age guy that loves astrology. Like, I was just like, I had originally read my horoscope, not my horoscope, about my sign many years ago in an astrology book, and I was like, that's pretty much me. That's weird. And then my girlfriend at the time, I read hers, and I was like, that's pretty much her. That's weird. And I always saw those characteristics in me. And then I went to John in time of need several years ago for some readings, and I objectively, like, I didn't have anything on it. I was like, let's see. I don't say anything. I don't like let them know anything about my life initially, and it was so spot on. He's going to come on this podcast. Yeah. It was I was just like, wow, but not spot on just for that one reading. And it was like an hour and a half reading. And he projects like a year and a half into your life. But it was spot on. I think I've had like 4 or 5 with him now, like all the time. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know. Anyway, why did we get into astrology?
Because I want to make fun of you for astrology, because astronomers don't believe in astrology.
Right.
And I love astronomy, but there's something to astrology. I love saying I don't believe in it, because I kind of don't, but I kind of can't deny.
In emergency
reality.
rooms and police stations, they know all about the effects of full moons and moon cycles and how crime rates go up, and it affects the psychology of people. But don't you think this, like, okay, so our everything is, it's all connected. It's all in the same universe. Everything's there. So as our consciousness comes to form or and become in our body as we're being born in that moment, there's certain forces that are coming together in that moment that can affect the outcome of what is produced.
Sure, but I don't think it's the location of Saturn, which is 600 million miles away from the sun.
But we're putting it in for like measurable, like brain things. Like we're going, well, that's really far away, so that shouldn't affect us, right? You know what I mean? Like there's a huge, and we're also talking about the emotional essence of the spirit. We're not talking about like if a meteor hits a thing, like the wind's not going to blow my hat off the table because it's too far away. We're talking about like the entire macrocosm of everything and how these, if it affects.
But to me, it's a hard argument to make. It's a hard argument to break as well. I can't see that bodies that are that far away from this planet dictate those kinds of
authority over things.
Yeah, like I just don't see it.
Well, the reason I brought that up, so my astrologer was like, you don't look like, a lot of people look like their signs in some way. They have facial characteristics of the signs. He goes, you don't look very bullish. You're more, you're tall. Yeah, I'm a Taurus. He's like, you're taller, you're thinner, you have a pointier nose. Usually people are much more like compressed that are Tauruses, and they have a flatter nose and they're broader. And I pulled out my 18-year-old graduation picture, and there it is. It's just like totally different physiognomy in the face. But a lot of it is like mucus congestion and like puffiness, and like it's all the diet stuff. And I was like,
inflammation.
Well, when I started eating clean, not only did my whole personality change and all my spiritual pursuits and the way I wanted to show up in the world, but like the physiology just changed so much. My teeth, where I had a big part in my teeth, like a David Letterman type of part, everything moved back together. I never wore braces. On my bottom teeth were a mess, but like my teeth all shifted together perfectly, and they were kind of going all over the place at that time, and my face changed and weight came off and the nose shape changed. Anyway, I brought that up because you were talking about feeling like puffy and fat, but you looked at yourself and you're like, oh, I looked fit, but you were feeling like that internal like pressure.
Well, it was internal, and getting back to that story, like when I finally, I guess it was 94, marked 4 years. Oh, okay, so, yeah, I forgot to say that. So as I was feeling the benefits of the food combining and the juicing, I wound up decreasing the meds over months and months and months. So I went from 6 pills a day to 4, right? Instead of 3 of each, I did 2 of each for months.
So why did you do that though? Did you know that you were healing yourself, or did you like, why were you decreasing your meds?
Well, because I was always told, like, you have to take the meds on a regular basis. I mean, the goal was, I'm getting off these meds. I had felt internally something shifted. I'm good now. And I read almost the whole book. So that made me almost an expert. That's all I needed. I was like, no, you don't understand. So I got off the meds after months and months and months, from three pills each a day to 2 pills each a day to 1 each a day. And I did those for like 2 months each or 3 months each, right? Those, because phenobarbital is like a benzodiazepine, deeply addictive drug. And for the mechanics that they bring, if you stop short, I could have like a fatal seizure, is what my neurologist told me. So I made sure to be careful, got down to 1 each a day, did one every other day, then did it every 3 days, and then did one on a Saturday, and I'm like, I'm done. That's it, I'm good.
So how long did you take them, like hard, like full on?
11 years.
And how long did it take you to wean yourself off of them?
I probably was off of them inside of 6 months, maybe 4 months. All right, so anyway, so I get off the meds in, I think it was 91. Then I talked to my friend. Did you know my buddy Tommy DeSantis? He became a chiropractor.
I know a Mike DeSantis. Is that his, no?
No.
Okay.
Tommy DeSantis, one of the funniest human beings I ever knew. He passed sadly a few years ago. Great man, truly great.
Another amazing thing from Staten Island is hysterical people.
Oh my God.
We have the best impractical jokers. I went to high school with them.
They're from Staten Island?
They went to Farrell, yeah. But we have so many funny dudes
really
from Staten
funny
Island.
people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm talking to Tommy DeSantis, and he was oh wow, I can't believe I forgot this. I was 18 years old. He and I shared an apartment, and he was like, he had all these East meets West books. He was like an East-West. Remember East-West books?
yeah, I think it's still there. Yeah.
No, closed down
Oh,
a
did
few
it?
years ago. Yeah. I used to treat the manager of
Really?
the store. Yeah. Really cool guy, like you would think. The only thing he was missing was like long white hair. But DeSantis had all these bizarre books, and I'm like, who is this whack job guy? Mucusless diet, like.
You found Arnold Ehret before
At
Gil
18.
introduced it to you? Wow.
At 18, and this is a great tie-in with my first colonic with Gil.
If you've listened to this podcast before, you know that our work is based in the work of Professor Arnold Ehret, who is a whack job, but came up with some but really, like, he recognized some really key concepts that people still today, like all of the super well trained, the naturopaths, the medical doctors, they just don't get this. That's the special gem, and you found it at 18.
And the book he wrote, The Mucusless Diet Healing System, was written in 1922, published in 22. And he died shortly before the book was published, because after giving a great lecture, a nudge, wanted more. Let's go talk. Let's have a juice like I guess orange juice back then, right?
There was always
obsessive
health food people that ask thousands of questions
Right.
hours after the lecture is over.
Right.
Always existed.
And he turned it down. He said no, and it was him and Fred Hirsch walking along the street. I don't know what city it was in. And
He was in California.
okay, and he got across the street, and he turned around, and he saw the woman looked really sad and dejected. So we went back and got her. He's like, come on, we could sit down for a few minutes and talk. And he stepped off the curb and slipped on an oil slick and smacked his head on the ground.
Because it was the 20s, and there was probably more oil on the ground. Yeah.
Then there was asphalt. And he got a basal fracture and died on the spot. What
Doc,
did that woman feel like?
Dr.
They killed
Dr.
the
Bish, he questions that whole account.
Well,
He thinks that it was blood gases and that he was eating too much fruit, and he blacked out and fell and hit the ground. He does. He believes that. I don't know.
It could be true. He could have blacked out.
Yeah.
But it was a real injury, and Fred Hirsch lived long enough to tell. I almost bought the Ehret Publishing Company.
I know. We gave treatments to the owner of the Ehret Publishing Company.
Right.
So, by the way, Fred Hirsch
was his last name.
Yeah.
Last.
So Fred Hirsch Professor Ehret was from Germany, And
Austria?
Germany, I thought.
Lived in Germany. I thought he was Austrian.
He might have been, right? So he was from there. He came to the United States. Fred Hirsch was American, right? And anyway, these were like the people from the 20s that like had
On the same, like on the Kellogg level. You know, Ehret had the sanitarium. Like he had his own sanitarium, and he did clinical research on like Max Gerson.
I'm going to start calling this place a sanitarium.
Yeah.
Vitality, sanitarium for New York. Well, can we call it a New York, a wellness-based sanitarium?
Just Vitality Sanitarium was pretty funny. But so Ehret was so radical for 1922 that in 2018, I don't believe a book's been written that even remotely compares to the concepts delivered in that book.
The foundational concept is it's incredible.
It's to me it's an impossible. The foundation of what he presents in regards to the friction that takes place in the body when there's accumulation from waste that isn't being released from the bowels, and B, mucus being formed from two things, from the acidic quality of the food and the drink, and what a lot of people don't realize is the presence of waste. If we have waste throughout the tubes of the body, then mucus is going to develop to protect the tissue from the acidic quality of the waste.
Because that waste doesn't just sit inert. It's decomposing, and there's
rots,
pathogenic bacteria, breaking it down.
You know what else people don't realize? When we're constipated, what happens? We get gassier. Why do we get gassier? Because the shit that's not leaving the body is decomposing, and decomposing more rapidly. In its stagnation, it just sits there and decomposes and bloats up the gut. So Ehret was,
And for everyone to understand, the principles that basically the foundational principle that Ehret came up with, and I've done this on the podcast. It's V equals P minus O, and basically what that translates into is that retained waste in the body causes disease. That the root of disease is constipation.
the root of disease. Yeah. So and his point is that the mucus is what gunks up the works, like it decreases vitality. Plug for the place.
That's why this place is called Vitality.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
I remember calling you up when I heard the first place that you opened with Donna after Shock for 17. And Gil goes, "Did you hear the name of the new place?" I'm like, and I was kind of pissed that you guys opened that place because I just didn't want us to break up. I just hated that people were going out on their own.
It got complicated back then.
It was complicated.
We all started out basically at one place. I mean, Gil and he had his own prehistory of everything,
Gil
but
started in '85.
yeah, he had his own prehistory of working illegally out of apartments and getting kicked out. And then we worked illegally. So Chakra said this was the fastest.
Semi-illegally.
Well,
Because it was a live-work space.
oh, was it
Yep.
a live workspace?
Live-work space, but no one lived there.
Right.
And that's why we got booted in 2006.
Yeah. So luxury high-rise building, decide to make a business in one of the apartments and install colonic units in all the bathrooms and convert the kitchen into a sterilization room and use the bedrooms as massage rooms and the living room as a reception area. It was brilliant and it was beautiful. So we worked there together.
Yeah.
I was the new kid on the block at that time and you were working there, and you were running the space with Cindy and Joyce and Gil, who was sort of the head of all of this, and Wendy had been there
So
before
when
you guys.
joined, Gil was already downtown?
No, Gil had that's how I got to join. Gil pulled out, and then I was able to come in.
So, okay, yeah.
But he still owned the place with you guys, and he was still there a couple of days a week. Yeah, that's how I was able to come in. I kind of took Gil's spot there.
Right.
Just as far as rooms and stuff.
Yeah. At one point, we had 4 rooms. And back in like the early 2000s, to have 2 rooms, 2 colonic rooms booked from basically anywhere from 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning till easily 8, 9, 10 at night.
Yeah.
And almost book solid constantly.
I wouldn't leave till 11 o'clock at night every night. And I used to sleep there sometimes
Me too.
because I used to have to start in the morning. So I was there really late at night, and the phone was ringing, but there was no cell phones back then. There's not even a computer on the desk back then. There was no website back then. So
It was a big fat book.
yeah, it's a big book and a phone, and that was it. So the phone was ringing. So I finished up my last client. It's like 10:30 at night. Grab the phone, and it's Joyce, and she's like, "Are you still there? Okay, good. Listen, there's this guy that's going to come upstairs. I need you to go into the safe, and there's like $3,000 or $4,000 in cash. It's in an envelope. It says Gil's name on it, and just give it to the guy." What? Okay, he's coming now. Yeah. Who is it? It's his bookie. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Gil was always losing money.
Holy cow. And that was the biggest like anomaly. Like as I got to know Gil initially, when I learned that he was even remotely interested in sports.
Loves football,
I was
loves
just
betting.
Like, how does that work? Like it didn't dawn on me because I got out of sports when I got a drum set. I left sports entirely, and that was it. Then I went music. I didn't know that I could still have both interests, but like I have my reasons for not sticking with sports. So, okay, so 18, I get exposed to Ehret. I eat like almost all fruit all day long. In 1980, I'm doing this, getting off the bus and running down the block to my apartment so I could shit. Because like the bus ride home would be like my 5th or 6th shit of the day. And I was constipated my whole life. I would go home and I would eat like 2 dozen bananas in a day, like insane amounts.
Well, it's what there's a lot of people are doing now.
Yeah, which is really, really stupid. But at the time, I would probably have around 8 or 9 bananas in a day. But like I was eating a lot of fruit. So my shit was literally like the color of bananas. Like, so I didn't know anything. I wasn't cleansing, but I was eating a lot of fruit and I was passing a lot. So I would run home and do that. And then one day I realized that I have a whole lot more drinking and partying and bad food to eat at this age.
Yeah,
and
it
gave
sounded like you went back. This is
I
before
did.
Fit for Life. This is before the medical
yeah.
MD. But
Yeah.
you found the Ehret book.
But I found, and that was from a roommate,
Yeah.
who was a martial artist. So now cut to off the meds, have the conversation with Tommy DeSantis, and he says you got to read The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity, which is a great book by Daniel P. Reed. Most of that book is, translated stuff from like super, super ancient Chinese scriptures and stuff. Like it's like really old information. They date this information at least 3,000 years old, food combining. Physicians in China were the ones who made up the menus back then. There were no chefs saying, "Oh, when you have the beef, you have a little bit of rice." Not that they were Italian, but
Yeah, I was just trying to picture the nice
nice
Chinese chef. Hey,
Hey, what are you
for a
doing
little
with
rice,
that
huh?
rice? Anyway, so the funny thing is that like I read this book, and it talks about like how waste accumulates in the intestines, and in some areas it could be a ½ inch thick on the walls of the colon, in the crevices and the flexures and all that.
And back then, and I've done podcasts on this if anyone's watched them, it was all illustrations because they didn't have anything. Now we have Dr. Shinya's
Yeah.
footage that I show all the clients, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?"
That's
And they're immediately signing up for colonics and
Yeah.
going on the broom cleanse. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. When you see that, like, I think there's like a 36-year-old woman who was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and the inside of her bowels is the color of your shirt. I mean, it's frightening.
Very distinct correlation between breast cancer and impacted colon.
Well, yeah, especially the flexures here
Yeah.
and the lymph system. Yeah, it's disastrous. I knew inside of 15 minutes, I knew one thing. I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, I'm always getting these. Like, I will never not get colonics in my life because in the first 20 minutes, I felt my gut decompressing. Waste was leaving my body. Gil was, Phil Rizzuto at the colonic table. Oh my God, holy cow, the whole shtick. And I'm like, I'm always getting these. And I knew one other thing, because I'm an arrogant douche. I'm never getting another seizure as long as I live. I knew that I was getting to the source right then and there. I knew it would take many more, but I knew that like I had hit like the jackpot here. And then my question to Gil was, I read Fit for Life and The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity. What would be another book you would recommend I read to further my knowledge? And he goes, "Oh, you got to read the mucus. No, you got to read Ehret." And I go, "Is that the mucusless guy?" What?
He
Like,
lost his mind. You are so now. You are so today.
So now and today. He was like, and you're from Staten Island? Like, his mind was blown.
Yeah, because all right, so
in
just
that
for the
moment,
listeners,
we
if you
bonded.
know who Ehret is and it's 20 years ago, it's just like
Yeah.
you're like
When I told him that I learned about Ehret in like 80, he was beside himself. He could not believe it. He flipped.
that unlocking. That's the part that a lot of people haven't yet to experience. Like there was a woman came in the other day, and I was giving her a treatment, and I felt bad, but I was super stoked on the way it worked because she came in. I mean, just processed diet junk, just like didn't set up for it, just like loaded with crap. Super good like attitude about the whole thing. But you know, the treatment got intense where a lot of stuff was letting go. It was just acidic cement, like feet, and her abdomen's going down and down. There's all this pressure and gas with it, and like her whole shit just transformed, like her whole everything. And she just got out of that room, and she was just like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Yeah, see, that's what we're walking around with, and that's what that diet does." And like when you have that first experience, it's just like that deflation, like all the pressure just. I've had my eyesight sharpen up after getting off of a table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the power in the colonic, I mean, the whole lifestyle, you know, it's a whole other conversation. But just that breakthrough colonic, you know, what I call the game changer or the life changer. When people have those types of colonics, I always joke around. You'll hear me come out of the room and be like, "So what's your new name?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Can't walk out here with the same name. You're a different person."
What do you
right
give? You
now."
give? What do you give? Spiritual names now, like the,
Yeah,
like the
right.
gurus?
You are Oshanta.
Oh, Shanta, what is that? Tell us more spiritual names, Tom.
Yeah.
It's a good segue for this article. So, the Independent UK interviewed me. They did a good job.
Before we did that,
Yeah.
going on 27 years free of the seizure meds. Haven't taken any meds since then. So no Tylenol, Advil, aspirin.
When was the last time you had a pharmaceutical drug?
1991, I think.
Amazing. Yeah.
The last time I had health insurance was 1995. Since 91 and now, not counting when I, in a very, what's his name? The adopted brother in The Godfather, Tom
Oh yeah, Tom.
Hagen.
Yeah.
When Tom Hagen leaves the movie producer's house, as the movie producer's yelling at him, "Listen to me, my Kraut Mick friend," you know, that whole scene. And he says, "Thank you very much for a pleasant evening and a, you know, great dinner." And he says, "I got to go," whatever. My neurologist started yelling at me, and I was like, "Thanks very much for all your years of service, but I will not be returning." So that was the last time I was in my neurologist's office. I had to get a blood test when I got married in 93. So they took blood in 93. That was one time I saw a doctor. And then in 2010, I cut this finger badly and had to get it stitched. That's the second time I personally saw a doctor since leaving my neurologist's office in 1991.
Your neurologist was upset with you because you were like, "I'm off meds," and he was like, "You're nuts," or
Yeah, he
what?
thought I was risking my life, that I was going to have a fatal seizure, and he promised me that I would be back in his office begging him for those meds.
And that was 91.
That was 91. My allergies that I had from a much younger age took longer to go away, but they went away in the 2002, 2003, 2004 range. I can't remember, but they're also gone. So no meds, no health insurance since 95, no illness to speak of. Once I got out of the cleansing illnesses,
Cleansing illnesses, that's a whole other topic.
That's
But that's like when I first got into this, and like, so we were just talking about like all like the pressure in the gut, and I was talking about my face, and I've probably put that up on YouTube already. The pressure in the face, the mucus, the inflammatory response from the food. Once you're consistent and get off of that food, the deep release from all the stored waste that the body's holding on to, as it's releasing, you get ill, you get sick. I remember there was shit popping out of my skin. I had white all over my tongue. I was getting like the flu, like fevers all the time, and like just going through this massive purging, rapid weight loss, just feeling horrible.
Vomiting.
Yeah, so those are the cleansing sicknesses, meaning like you didn't run yourself down and your immune system crashed because you're stressing and not sleeping, meaning like you're doing everything right, but all of a sudden you just get feeling really sick and purging a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I always say, it's like feather dusting. You feather dust.
I love this analogy. Say this analogy. This was great. You said this to one of our clients the other day.
You know, a colonic is like cleaning a room. It's like what doesn't leave the body applies to this. So we clean a room with a feather duster, and the air quality is poor because the feather duster can't pick it all up. So we dust the room, we leave the room, more dust settles, second colonic or second feather dusting, less dust, air quality not so great, but not as bad as it was before, right? Leave the room, let the dust settle, come back in with a third feather duster, third colonic, let's say, you know, and little by little we get the rest.
This is a great way to explain V equals P minus O. So you have vitality equals, and Tom will correct me here, but pressure minus obstruction. I know it's power minus obstruction. I use pressure. He uses pressure sometimes in his other writing. So I use pressure because it's the people can understand it in the way of the pressure of the gases and the fluids and the nutrients and the waste moving in and out of the different areas of the body. So when we unlock the biggest, cavity of pressure, what happened to that camera, sir? Oh, when we unlock the biggest cavity of pressure, and boom, we create this emptiness, everything can then drain out. And when it drains out of the deeper tissue, we don't feel well until it gets into circulation again and gets brought and collected by the organs of elimination and eliminated again.
Right.
And every time we create that emptiness, we allow the depressurization of everything, allowing vitality to go up, because then the gases and the fluids could have a very, they have an ease of exchange.
Right.
I think we did good here. I think, I don't know how long we've been talking. This is set for seconds. We've been talking 2,569 seconds. What is it, seconds, Nick? What is this set to?
Maybe frames?
It can't be seconds.
Time signature.
Oh.
Look at that.
Oh, that's not.
This is 2,500 bars.
Yeah, basically.
Anyway, I think we did good here. So we'll save that for another podcast. I'd like to do it. Yeah, although I'd love to get into those comments with you, because I think you're going to have a field day with them. But we've been doing this for 2,500 bars, so.
You want to just get one question?
Yeah.
I think you want to get one question.
I think I want one question.
Okay, so the Independent UK interviewed me. It was a good interview. Let me preface this. You got to pee? I'm going to preface this for everyone while you pee. So what happened with this is the Independent UK interviewed me. And it was a good interview, and the journalist did a good job. They did a couple of weird things. They took some of my words. They didn't really misquote me too much, but they took some of my words and they just used it in a way that was different than what I did. And I asked somebody a friend of mine that is a brilliant editor and writer, and I asked her to edit this for me. And she did, but she sort of added something in there that were not my words. So anyway, I just want to say that because there are a couple of things in here that were not exactly out of my mouth. So anyway, this article comes out, Independent UK, and it was great. But the comment section, they were just, everybody was a self-proclaimed expert, and all of a sudden, had a background in colon hydrotherapy. So I couldn't, when it first... And you can tell that it's from the UK. This one woman says, total, what does she say? Oh, we got ads popping up. She says, what a total load of tosh. Anyway, we're going to...
Peter?
And you commented back, so it's really funny. Nick, actually, you commented on her article, on her thing. So let's read this one first. So she says... this is the first comment that shows up on this. How many comments are on this one? Oh, good. Okay, it's only 23 comments. What a total load of tosh. Colonic irrigation is a solution, looking for a problem and finding takers in the fashionably gullible. For the overwhelming majority of us, our body is quite capable of taking care of its own irrigation needs. It's called going for a shit. And then... Espro98, a.k.a. Nikki G, who works here, says, if you're eating what is meant to be in our bodies, which is fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, However, overwhelming majority of us do not eat only these foods.
Especially
Good answer,
Brits.
Nick. Yeah, especially all cultures, pretty much. Then this person says, so eggs are now processed food. How very confusing. That was the thing that I was prefacing before. That was not my words. Somebody changed that. This person says, he may be at the top of his profession, but he started at the bottom.
That's a great comment.
Yes, colonic irrigation is nonsense, but it gives this man a good living. Because I couldn't figure out something else to fucking make money from. I did this because of the... Listen, I'm not a colonic therapist for the money. I'm a colonic therapist for the fame, motherfuckers. For the fame.
I mean, no, all kidding aside, like, anyone who thinks that this is a fast track to money, I mean, you can make, great money as a colon therapist, but if one is not in love with this work, get the fuck out of the colonic room.
Yeah. And when I had my initial training, there were people there for a business model.
Yeah.
They were not, you could see their bodies, and not trying to judge people, but terribly unhealthy and out of shape. And I'm like, what's your connection to this? Because to be able to stomach this job and to like deal with the things we deal with, and to get excited for someone to be unlocking tons of shit out of their gut, like, because, we intellectually know what it does, but to be able to show up and do that every day, like, you got to live this. Like, who wants to do that? It's not a get rich quick thing.
No.
And it's not a cheap procedure, because it requires a lot of skill, it requires time, and it requires a lot of things. Like when we built this place out, like it requires a lot of customized equipment and things like that. And it's like a tattoo. Don't get a cheap tattoo. You know what I mean? Don't get a Groupon colonic.
That's a great example.
It's like you don't do something like that. Someone's working on your body, so yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money. Then there's this one person, and it's too long to read now because we're going to close this podcast up, and we'll bring it in another time. But like, there's somebody saying, is talking about some condition they had. They were 20 years, semi-bedridden, and whatever. And they start to talk about the most amazing help was colonics. I used to crawl up the stairs on hands and knees, sometimes to the treatment room. Afterwards, I felt normal and skipped out to the car waving my stick. I don't know what that means. Oh, waving his cane, probably. That's fucking weird.
Hello?
Yeah, wave him. The comments that are reply to this comment are everyone telling him that he's wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I was really sick and I got well doing colonics.
It wasn't the colonics.
And they're like, no. This one person says,
It's the Tylenol.
and then I guess somewhere in his thing he says organic food helped, and the guy says organic food helped. No, it didn't. And then goes on to tell him why his experience was invalidated. It's just like so fucked up.
A personal experience means nothing in the clinical world.
That was one of the misquotes on here that they gave to me. They said, they asked me, something like, what studies prove the benefit of colon irrigation? And I said, none of them. And I said, the reason none of them do is because most studies are financially driven, as they should be. I don't judge that, because if you're going to put the effort and the time and the money into the studies, you're trying to do something, create something, solve a problem, or sell something, whatever it is. Nobody's selling enema kits and colonic units. It's not a big buck, so no one's going to put studies into that to find out if they're valuable or not. All right, let's wrap this up. We'll get more into that other stuff another time, my man. Thank you.
Pleasure, man.
Thank you.